The road stretched long and lonely, dust rising in muted clouds behind Aaron's truck. The morning had started with an ordinary call from his neighbor, Samuel, asking for help mending a section of fencing on his ranch. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just another favor between men living miles apart in the countryside. Aaron had agreed, too quickly, almost eager for a reason to step away from the silence of his own home. At 42, Aaron carried himself with a mixture of weariness and discipline. Years of marriage to Claire had settled into patterns, shared meals without conversation, polite nods instead of laughter, and a bed where warmth existed but intimacy had long gone missing. He never spoke of it aloud, not even to himself most days, yet the absence was a constant hum in the background of his life. Fixing a fence seemed easier than fixing what lay between them. Samuel's ranch appeared on the horizon, a sprawl of weather-beaten wood, wide fields, and scattered cattle. The air felt sharper here, freer, as if the land itself refused confinement. Aaron parked near the barn, brushing dust from his shirt, steadying his breath before walking toward the open pasture. That was when he saw Samuel waiting. The cowboy leaned against a fence post, hat tilted low, a half-smile curling as Aaron approached. Samuel was younger by a few years, broad-shouldered, and carried an ease about him that contrasted sharply with Aaron's guarded demeanor. He spoke first, voice smooth and edged with humor. "Before you get to fixing that fence, maybe you ought to fix me." Aaron paused, caught between confusion and a reluctant grin. He knew Samuel enjoyed teasing, often turning mundane tasks into playful banter. Still, something in the phrasing lingered, heavier than a joke, almost daring. Aaron chose the safer reply. "Let's start with the fence. You're a bigger project than I'm prepared for." Samuel chuckled, stepping aside to reveal the damage. 2 posts cracked, wires slackened by weather and restless cattle. Yet his gaze didn't follow the fence. It stayed on Aaron a fraction too long, searching. As they worked side by side, conversation unfolded in fragments. Samuel spoke of ranch life, of nights under open skies, of loneliness that came with acres of land and little company. Aaron answered in short responses, measuring each word, unwilling to reveal the hollow echo that had grown inside him at home. But Samuel had a way of filling silence, his laughter unguarded, his movements deliberate, his presence impossible to ignore. Aaron felt it first when their hands brushed passing tools. The contact was accidental, yet it sent an unexpected pulse through him, sharper than the sun above. He pulled back quickly, but Samuel noticed his smirk deepening. "You jump like you touched fire," Samuel teased, voice low. Aaron forced a chuckle. "Guess I wasn't ready." They returned to work, though Aaron's thoughts drifted from the fence. He found himself watching the curve of Samuel's shoulders as he lifted posts, the confident rhythm of his movements. He noticed details he shouldn't, the way sweat traced along Samuel's neck, the steadiness in his voice when he spoke. These observations unsettled him, yet he couldn't turn away. By midday, the fence was only half repaired. They paused for water, sitting on the grass where the shade barely reached. Samuel leaned back on his elbows, eyes narrowing against the light. "Funny, isn't it?" he said. "Some things break easy. Other things take years to wear down, but when they do, you don't know where to start fixing." Aaron swallowed, the words striking deeper than Samuel likely intended. He thought of Claire, of their years built on routine, of cracks spreading quietly beneath the surface. For a moment, he wanted to answer, to confess the weight he carried. Instead, he only nodded. The silence between them grew thicker, not uncomfortable, but charged. Aaron realized then that this visit, meant to be nothing more than a neighborly favor, had shifted into something more dangerous. He should have gathered his tools, thanked Samuel, and left. Yet he remained, rooted not by obligation, but by a pull he couldn't quite name. As the afternoon sun stretched shadows across the field, Aaron understood the fence wasn't the only thing fragile that day. Something inside him was loosening too, and Samuel seemed to sense it. The work remained unfinished, but Aaron didn't rise to leave. The afternoon stretched long, the sky paling into a softer blue as clouds drifted lazily overhead. The fence stood half-mended, the tools scattered across the grass, yet neither Aaron nor Samuel seemed pressed to finish. What began as labor had shifted into something slower, more deliberate, as though both men sensed the task no longer centered on wood and wire. Samuel broke the quiet first. You ever get the feeling that fixing things just makes you notice how much else is falling apart? His voice carried no bitterness, only a worn honesty. Aaron turned the question over in his mind. He thought of Claire, of their evenings spent in silence, of the way they brushed past each other like strangers in their own kitchen. He wanted to say yes, but instead he offered a careful shrug. Sometimes. Samuel's gaze lingered on him. Must be nice, though, going home to someone every night. The words cut sharper than expected. Aaron shifted uncomfortably, searching for a neutral reply. It has its moments. Samuel leaned closer, his expression unreadable. Moments aren't the same as a life. Aaron felt the ground tilt beneath him. He should have deflected, turned back to the work. Instead, he found himself studying Samuel's face, the lines of wear and sun, the steadiness of his eyes. The intensity unsettled him, yet it stirred something he had kept buried for years. They resumed the task in silence, hammering posts into place, tightening wire. But the air between them had changed. When Samuel reached to guide Aaron's grip on the hammer, his hand covered Aaron's with quiet assurance. The touch lasted a second too long. Aaron froze, torn between instinct to pull away and a desire to remain still. Samuel didn't release him immediately. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You carry too much weight on your own." The words struck deeper than the hammer ever could. Aaron's chest tightened. Maybe that's just life. Or maybe it's just the wrong kind of life, Samuel countered, finally letting go. They worked until sweat dampened their shirts, the sun pressing heavy on their backs. When they paused again, Samuel handed Aaron a canteen. Their fingers brushed, deliberate this time. Aaron drank, the cool water easing his throat, but not the heat rising in him. "You don't laugh much," Samuel observed, reclining in the grass. "I can't tell if you've forgotten how, or if no one's given you a reason." Aaron sat beside him, silent. The truth burned too close to speak aloud. Samuel tilted his head, studying him. "Tell me something honest. Just one thing." Aaron hesitated, but the ranch felt far from judgment, far from the expectations waiting at home. The words slipped out before he could stop them. "I don't remember the last time I felt wanted." Samuel's eyes softened. "Then maybe it's time you let yourself be." The weight of silence returned, charged and undeniable. Samuel leaned closer, his arm brushing Aaron's. Neither moved away. The world seemed to shrink until it was only the two of them, the broken fence forgotten. Aaron's mind raced with warnings, his vows, Claire's face, the years of shared history. But his body betrayed him, drawn to the closeness, the promise of something more. When Samuel reached out, fingers grazing Aaron's jaw, the decision hung in the air like a held breath. For a heartbeat, Aaron resisted. He told himself this was wrong, that he should stand, gather his tools, and leave. Yet the resistance faltered, worn down by longing and loneliness. Their lips met, tentative at first, then surer. The kiss was not wild but heavy with unspoken truth, the kind that carried both comfort and danger. Aaron felt his world fracture, guilt and relief colliding inside him. For the first time in years, he felt alive. When they pulled apart, the silence was heavier still. Samuel's expression held no apology, only quiet certainty. Aaron stared at the ground, breath unsteady. The fence remained unfinished, but something far greater had crossed a line. And Aaron knew, as he sat in the fading light beside Samuel, that returning to the life he had left at home would no longer feel the same. The sun had already slipped low when Aaron finally stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. The fence stood straighter than before, but his hands trembled as he packed away the tools. What they had shared lingered like smoke, intangible yet impossible to ignore. Samuel said nothing at first, only watched with that steady, unreadable gaze. When Aaron finally met his eyes, Samuel broke the silence. You don't have to run off like you've done something unforgivable. His tone was calm, almost gentle. Aaron swallowed hard. Haven't I? Samuel tilted his hat back, his expression softening. Depends how you see it. Sometimes a man needs more than what he has. Doesn't make him evil, just makes him human. The words offered no comfort. If anything, they deepened Aaron's unease. He wasn't ready for forgiveness, especially not from the man who had tempted him across the line he swore never to cross. He gathered the last of the tools in silence, trying to steady his thoughts. The drive home felt longer than the morning trip. The air inside the truck was heavy, the engines hum a backdrop to Aaron's racing mind. Images replayed in fragments, Samuel's touch, the heat of the kiss, the unspoken acceptance in his eyes. Alongside them came Claire's face, distant but familiar. The life they had built together now, overshadowed by a single reckless choice. When Aaron pulled into his driveway, the house looked unchanged, neat, quiet, almost indifferent. Claire stood at the kitchen window, rinsing dishes, her movements methodical. She glanced up briefly as he entered, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Fence all fixed?" she asked, voice casual, as though the hours he had been gone mattered little. Aaron hesitated before answering. "Mostly." She nodded, turning back to the sink. No further questions, no warmth, no suspicion. Just silence filling the space between them, the same silence that had been growing for years. It struck Aaron then, this was the chasm that had left him open to Samuel's pull. Not a single kiss, not one afternoon, but the years of absence that had preceded it. That night, as Claire read in bed beside him, Aaron lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The weight of what he had done pressed down on him, but so too did the memory of feeling alive again, if only for a moment. He shifted restlessly, torn between guilt and longing, between the duty that anchored him and the desire that beckoned. By morning, nothing outward had changed. The routine continued, coffee brewed, the paper left folded on the counter, polite words exchanged like currency. Yet Aaron carried a secret now, one that hummed beneath the surface of every interaction. Claire didn't notice, or perhaps chose not to. Back at the ranch, Samuel would be rising with the cattle, moving through the day with the same steady confidence, untouched by hesitation. Aaron knew the memory would stay there too, waiting like an unfinished fence line stretching across the horizon. As he drove past the fields later that week, his truck rattling along the dirt road, he caught sight of Samuel in the distance, hat tilted, frame steady against the expanse of land. Their eyes didn't meet, but Aaron felt the pull all the same. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, unsure if the road ahead would take him further from temptation or lead him right back to it. The truth settled heavy inside him. Some fences, once broken, were never meant to be repaired. He thought of Samuel's words. Moments aren't the same as a life. Aaron had chosen his life long ago, but now he couldn't forget the moment that threatened to redefine it. Whether he would return to the cowboy's ranch, Aaron couldn't say. What he did know was this: he had gone out to fix a fence, but the one left needing repair was himself.